إلى عدم التشبث بمعادلات خشبية جامدة.
الأفق ليس مسدودا.
Good afternoon on this Tuesday, March 11th. I'm Yumna Naufal and these are today's headlines. President Michel Sleiman urges Lebanon's political parties to apologize to the Lebanese people over their failure to implement decisions. The UN reports that the number of children impacted by Syria's war has doubled in the past year to 5.5 million. And the international police agency Interpol does not believe the disappearance of the Malaysia Airlines plane was the result of a terrorist attack. President Michel Sleiman is urging Lebanon's rival political parties to apologize to the Lebanese people over their failure to implement decisions reached at the all-party talks. Unfortunately, we haven't respected what we've agreed to in Parliament and the National Dialogue sessions in Babda, said Sleiman. He added that those not respecting the decisions of the group would be held responsible for the failure to implement them. The future governments should follow up on the donations made by certain countries to help the Lebanese army and the country's economy, he added. Just to remind you, the International Support Group for Lebanon, which was formed in New York in 2013, appealed last week for nations to extend pledges for financial help for the country. Participants at the ministerial meeting in Paris stressed the need to not only speed up the promised aid, but provide additional help as well. In the news today, a 20-year-old man has confessed to raping 7 minors after luring them with money in the northern city of Tripoli. The arrest comes after a Lebanese father approached the police in Tripoli on Thursday, claiming that the 20-year-old man, identified as Muhammad Mahfoud Mustafa, raped his 13-year-old son. During police interrogation, the suspected perpetrator confessed to raping the 13-year-old along with 6 other minors after offering them money ranging from 2,000 Lebanese pounds to about 5,000. This is the second serial pedophilia case in less than a year. The UN is reporting that the number of children impacted by Syria's war has doubled in the past year to 5.5 million, many of them trapped in besieged areas and are beyond reach. In a report entitled Under Siege, the devastating impact on children of 3 years of conflict in Syria, the UN's UNICEF warns that the situation is likely to get worse. It warns that the future of these 5.5 million children inside Syria and living as refugees in neighboring countries hangs in the balance as violence, the collapse of health and education services, severe psychological distress, and the worsening economic impact on families combine to devastate a generation. In host countries, 1.2 million Syrian children are now refugees living in camps and overwhelmed host communities and have limited access to clean water, nutritious food, or learning opportunities. The international police agency Interpol does not believe the disappearance of the Malaysia Airlines plane was the result of a terrorist attack. Interpol Secretary General Ronald Noble also suggested that 2 men who boarded using stolen passports may have been smuggled by traffickers. The plane, with 239 people on board, has been missing for 4 days, and a search involving crews from 10 countries widened to a larger area of the Gulf of Thailand and South China Sea. Noble reports that the 2 Iranian passport holders, aged 18 and 29, who started their trip in Doha, had swapped their passports in Kuala Lumpur and used stolen Italian and Austrian passports to board the airliner. Giving the name publicly of the 2 individuals listed on the Iranian passports, Puri Nur Mohammadi and Delavar Sayed Muhammad Reza, might compel families and friends to offer tips that could allow authorities to exclude terrorism theories. In other world news, the local assembly approved a declaration on the independence of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol, with 78 out of 81 lawmakers present voting in favor. Ukrainian leader Viktor Yanukovych states that he is still the country's legitimate president and commander-in-chief, adding he believes he will be able to return to Kiev soon. He reaffirmed his belief that power in Kiev had been taken by a band of ultra-nationalists and neo-fascists, and said that presidential elections planned in May would be absolutely illegitimate and illegal. Yanukovych told the new pro-West authorities in Ukraine, who took over after he fled to Russia last month, that sooner or later, most likely sooner, they would be held responsible for their actions. He blames them for the fact that Ukraine appears to lose control over Crimea, which is set to be claimed by Russia after a referendum next week. North Korea is developing sophisticated techniques to circumvent United Nations imposed sanctions, including the suspected use of its embassies to facilitate an illegal trade in weapons, according to a new UN report. It says North Korea is also making use of more complicated financial countermeasures that made the isolated country's purchase of prohibited goods more difficult to track. The report, compiled by a panel of 8 UN experts, is part of an annual accounting of North Korea's compliance with layers of UN sanctions imposed in response to Pyongyang's banned nuclear and missile programs. Coming up next, Lebanese restaurant Simsum is opening branches in the United States. An exclusive interview when we return. FFA Private Bank, leading private bank and investment bank in the MENA region, held a press conference for the launch of the Simsum U.S. private placement on March 10th. Simsum is a Lebanese restaurant with a modern twist, offering traditional and modern recipes. But since its establishment in 2008, it has expanded with branches in Lebanon and franchises in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, with additional restaurants scheduled to open soon in Oman and the UAE.
We started a long time ago. I was obviously 2 years old when we started Dunkin' Donuts. That even if Lebanon is small, we were able to make a big impact. And we got every award you can think of in the Dunkin' world. We had first the gold medal in the Challenge of Excellence, so we were the #1 franchisee worldwide. We had brand building awards. Our coffee strategy was used across all countries in the world. And finally, we got the Pathfinder Award. It was given only to 2 companies, Lebanon and South Korea. And it's given to companies that have made a difference in the way Dunkin' Donuts operates globally. So this really gives an impression of what a small country is able to do. And Simsum started 5 years ago. And here also we were able to grow quite rapidly. In 2011, it was the fastest growing Lebanese company. We were able to do outstanding number in Jeddah and Kuwait, and will be soon in other markets as well. And we're really ready to go after the biggest market in the world.
With us today to discuss the opening of the branches in the United States is Business Development Manager at Simsum, Mrs. Karine Aswad. Welcome, Karine.
Hi, Yumna. Thanks for having me.
Karine, I want to know, why the United States?
Well, as Christine mentioned yesterday, it's a $660 billion market. And we're targeting a very specific and very dynamic market or segment in it, which is the fast casual. So just as a reference, over the past 10 years, the top 100 chains in that segment grew by 13% each year. So we think that there's an untapped potential for a Lebanese dominant player, and we're more than happy to jump in.
You know, a lot of people have been talking about this because the economy is unstable in the country. A lot of businesses in Lebanon are expanding regionally. Is this also is this a reason why you may be also expanding to the United States?
Well, as of day one, the goal of Simsum was to share the Lebanese cuisine and the Lebanese traditions. So as of day one, we were thinking about expanding and opening a new market. Now, obviously, the Lebanese situation is forcing us to go a bit quickly and fast, and to try and reach as many opportunities as possible very quickly.
Do you think Simsum offers, what's Simsum's competitive edge? What do you think it's going to offer in the United States? Because there are already other Lebanese restaurants, so how does yours differ from what is already there?
Well, I think, first of all, the concept itself differs. Simsum is not any traditional Lebanese restaurant. It's a Lebanese restaurant with a twist. So we always try to have this little extra something in our recipes that really makes a difference. And in addition to that, we're not trying to be just another Lebanese store with 1 or 2 stores. We're really setting up for scale as of day one. That means trying to understand our customer, really refining and tweaking the concept to make sure that you're addressing their needs to our best.
I know this because I've talked with you behind the scenes. You were a consultant at the Boston Consulting Group, and you told me that you're looking to open the first branches in Manhattan, which is, I'm guessing, a pretty good idea considering it's a very cosmopolitan place. Can you tell me how your expertise as a consultant is going to play with this new entrepreneurship that you're getting into right now?
Of course, I mean, the experience at BCG is definitely invaluable. Opening a restaurant is a lot of day-to-day operational follow-up, but opening a chain of restaurants is really about being able to lead the company in a cycle of growth and expansion. And I think having the background I have in operational excellence, in strategic planning, and all the different domain I got to work in as a consultant will definitely be extremely helpful.
Okay. What does it take to open a restaurant, would you say?
I think it takes a lot of drive, a lot of passion, because you're going to have a lot of impediments along the way. I think it takes a lot of humility to understand where you have gaps and identify the partners that can actually help. I think to open a restaurant in the state or to open a chain, it requires funding. That would be my number 3. So having the right funding as of day one to scale quickly. And finally, I'd say it requires guts. And I come from a family where we were taught to dream big and not to be afraid of our dreams. So
we have to mention that Mrs. Christine Sfer is actually your older sister, the CEO of Dunkin' Donuts here in Lebanon and of Simsim as well. You mentioned funding, and in my introduction, I mentioned that the FFA Private Bank was hosting the conference yesterday where you introduced this new operation. Can you tell me how the funding is going to take place?
Well, FFA has been extremely supportive. It was more than just a private bank. It's really a partner that has been helping us find the appropriate partners to fund this project. It's a 2-phase funding. So it's a $6 million project that will be, the $6 million will be raised in 2 phases. And we're starting with a $4 million that will allow us to open 20 owned restaurants and 40 franchises until by 2020.
So you said that it wouldn't start right away with just one store. You would have to open 4 or 5. Can you just explain why that would have to be the technique?
I think to open a very successful chain in the US, you have to better understand the market. There's 4 reasons to having a great funding, where funding can actually help. First of all, it allows you to know the market better, to prepare better, so to take the time and to really talk to the right person to develop and to adjust. It's about also taking the time to talk with customers, so having a lot of focus group and adapting your recipes. Funding allows you to grow quickly, so you can actually offset the cost of a central structure. And finally, and this is something I think 99% of our competitors don't do, so they really skip on this preparation phase, whereas we're really taking the time to do it. And finally, I think the 4th thing that we're allowed to do by having the appropriate funding is to send people from the MENA region, including myself, to support the project and to make sure that we're going to do the best we can.
You were telling me this is going to open in November or December of this year?
We're planning to open by end of year. There's a lot of uncertainty to the exact date, obviously, because there's a lot of permitting and location issues, but we're definitely opening by the end of the year.
So if I'm in Manhattan around the holidays, I'll definitely make sure to give you a ring and join you for a Simsim dinner.
Please do. Please
right.
do. We'll be happy to have you.
Thank you for being with us today. That was the Business Development Manager at Simsim, Ms. Karine Aswad, telling us all about Simsim opening in the United States. And on that note, I'm going to remind you of our top stories today. President Michel Sleiman urges Lebanon's political parties to apologize to the Lebanese people over their failure to implement decisions. The UN reports that the number of children impacted by Syria's war has doubled in the past year to 5.5 million. And the International Police Agency Interpol does not believe the disappearance of a Malaysia Airlines plane is the result of a terrorist attack. Those are your Tuesday headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you a good week ahead. Take care.
إلى عدم التشبث بمعادلات خشبية جامدة.
الأفق ليس مسدودا.